Good evening, aspirants. Welcome to the Hindi News Analysis by Shankar IAS Academy for the date 28th June 2020. These are the list of news articles chosen for today's analysis. It has been provided along with the page numbers of different editions of Hindu newspaper. The link for the handwritten notes in the PDF format and the timestamping for the displayed articles is given in the description box and also in the comment section for the benefit of viewers. Let us move on to the first article discussion for today. This discussion is based on this news article, which mentions that according to a study published in a science journal, the climate change could reawaken El Nino in the Indian Ocean. So, in this context, this article mentions terms such as El Nino in Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean dipole, last glacial maximum, and then also about foraminifera. So in this discussion, we'll see about these terms and how it is related to the study, and we'll see some of the findings of this study in the course of this analysis. The syllabus that is relevant to this discussion is given here for your reference. Now, before discussing about the findings of the study, for background information, let us first see about El Nino Southern Oscillation and then about Indian Ocean Dipole. See, at present, when we say El Nino and La Nina, these terms are related to the interactions between the atmosphere and ocean in the tropical belt of Pacific Ocean. These interactions alter global weather and climate patterns. Now, in an El Nino event, the sea surface temperature in the central and eastern tropical Pacific Ocean becomes substantially higher than normal. This oceanic event is associated with changes in pressure pattern in the southern oceans. The changes in the pressure pattern is called as southern oscillation, and know that the El Nino and associated southern oscillation is shortly called as ENSO. Now, because of the changes in the pressure pattern and atmospheric air circulation, several regions experience swings or changes in their normal rainfall pattern. And some regions receive lesser or no rainfall, and whereas some regions receive extreme rainfall. But know that both have extreme consequences such as droughts or devastating floods. Now, whenever it is El Nino, it affects the summer monsoon in June to September in India. This is because El Nino is associated with weakening of trade winds, which are driving the Indian summer monsoon winds. Now, in that sense, El Nino is associated with increased propensity of droughts-like conditions in India. Just remember this. Now, if you come to La Nina, know that the cold phase of ENSO is La Nina. In a La Nina event, the sea surface temperature in the central and eastern tropical Pacific Ocean becomes lower than normal. So, whenever it is La Nina, India experiences more rainfall and associated floods in some places. Next, let us see about Indian Ocean Dipole before discussing about the findings of this study. Now, know that Indian Ocean Dipole is the difference in sea surface temperature between two areas or two poles. Now, one of the areas or poles is the tropical Western Indian Ocean area. This area is called as the Western Pole in the Arabian Sea. And the other one is the tropical Southeastern Indian Ocean area, which is south of Indonesia, as you can see in this depiction. And this IOD or Indian Ocean Dipole involves oscillation of sea surface temperature between positive and negative phases. And there is also a neutral condition to Indian Ocean Dipole. Now, when there is positive IOD, it means cooling of waters in the Eastern Indian Ocean. That is, the Western Pole is warmer and the Eastern Pole is cooler. Now, this leads to droughts in Indonesia region, but it brings heavy rainfall in India. So, what happens in a negative phase of IOD? In this, Eastern Pole is warmer and the Western Pole is cooler. And in a negative phase of IOD, it brings warmer water and greater precipitation in the eastern near equatorial Indian Ocean region. Also know that this negative IOD during the months of April to May is what is associated with early monsoon onset over Kerala. And the negative IOD during the months of March to April is said to have enhanced seasonal summer monsoon rainfall over the peninsular India than the monsoon rainfall over the central India and northern India. Now, additionally, also know that the positive IOD events are often associated with El Nino, and then the negative IOD events are associated with La Nina. And it is reported that positive IOD event influences or moderates the effects of El Nino event. This means, despite El Nino, if there is a strong positive IOD, then it can lead to good monsoon rainfall in India. Now, one more point which is to be noted here is that both these events impact Indian monsoon. As a result of this, there is variability in monsoon associated climatic parameters. Now, this study, which is mentioned in this news article, reports that there is going to be one another event in the Indian Ocean in the near future. And this event will be like El Nino that is observed in the eastern and central tropical Pacific Ocean. Now, such an event in the Indian Ocean is expected to pose another source of uncertainty in rainfall prediction. It is also expected that this event of the future will amplify or intensify the existing variability that is seen in Indian monsoon. Now, this means in such events, we may get more rainfall, which may lead to floods, or we may also get less rainfall, which may lead to drought like situations. And thus, it may affect food security and it may affect livelihood of rain dependent farmers. Now, the study mentioned in the article predicts that such an event may be witnessed from 2050 onwards. Now, the worst part here is that the event and its possible emergence by the year 2050 is forced by climate change. That is, the global warming due to increasing greenhouse gas emissions. Now, in the beginning, we saw that climate change could reawaken El Nino in the Indian Ocean. Here we say reawaken because scientists say that the predicted climate variability of the future and its expected variabilities were present in the past also. And this study reports that the Indian Ocean exhibited the expected altered state in the climatic interval nearly 21,000 years before the present year. Now, this climatic interval, which is roughly between 26,000 years and 21,000 years before the present, is called as last glacial maximum, or in short, LGM. At this period, the continental ice sheets reached their maximum total mass in the last ice age. Now, in that period, that is in the last glacial maximum, the temperature near Earth's surface in the unglaciated regions was around 5 degrees Celsius. And the global sea level was 125 meters below the present modern levels. Now, one of the reasons for this is because the water was held up as ice in glaciers as it was an ice age. And in this period, there were El Nino-like climate variabilities in the Indian Ocean. Now, one of the authors of this study mentioned that global warming affects wind and ocean currents in Indian Ocean in the same way how the glacial conditions affected the wind and ocean currents in the past some 21,000 years ago. And this emergent mode will be initiated remotely over the Western Indian Ocean and Arabian Sea by an atmospheric circulation anomaly or deviation from the normal. And this will be followed by downward movement of water along the equator and upward movement of water or upwelling, that is, water rising from the below. And this interplay of movements will lead to difference in sea surface temperature in the eastern equatorial Indian Ocean. There will be climatological warming in this part in the late boreal summer. Now, this period roughly relates to the months from August to September for the northern hemisphere. This long-term change in Indian Ocean is forced by increasing greenhouse gas emissions. So now, how the researchers came to a conclusion that El Nino-like events existed in Indian Ocean. They came to this conclusion studying Foraminifera. See, Foraminifera is a microscopic zooplankton. By studying this zooplankton, the researchers concluded about El Nino-like phenomena in the Indian Ocean in the past. That is, in 2019, they concluded that Indian Ocean had El Nino-like events in the last glacial maximum. Here, the authors studied the calcium carbonate shells of Foraminifera, and they were able to arrive at the sea surface temperature conditions of the past. Here, know that Foraminifera creates calcium carbonate shells to protect themselves. When they make their shells, they incorporate oxygen from the ocean. Now, these shells contains the 16O and 18O isotopes of oxygen. And know that by discovering the ratio of 16O and 18O in a fossil, scientists can obtain a reasonable estimate for the temperature at the time of existence of that particular organism. And using such methods only, the scientists used the Foraminifera shells from the ocean sediment cores and they arrived at the ocean temperature at the time of the creation of that Foraminifera's shell. And finally, after analyzing the ocean temperatures, they concluded that there were El Nino-like events in Indian Ocean in the glacial past. And now in May 2020, the team has also predicted that this past event may re-emerge in Indian Ocean by the year 2050. Now, this re-emergence is forced by increasing greenhouse gas emissions, as we already saw. And the study also notes that if it does not re-emerge by the year 2050, then such variabilities in the Indian Ocean is to be observed by the year 2100. So that is all about this discussion. In this discussion, we saw about El Nino, we saw about La Nina, we saw about Indian Ocean Dipole, last glacial maximum, and we also saw about foraminifera. And we saw some of the findings mentioned in the research study, which noted that the climate change could reawaken El Nino like events in the Indian Ocean. With this, we come to the end of this discussion. The split practice question will be discussed in the last session. Moving on to the next discussion, we all have heard of the credit and monetary policy of RBI. It is the policy by which the desired level of money flow and its demand is regulated. And RBI uses several monetary instruments such as cash reserve ratio, statutory liquidity ratio, repo and reverse repo rates, and marginal standing facility rate, etc. So, today we will see this news article which mentions about certain measures adopted by RBI to ensure sufficient liquidity or cash flow with the scheduled banks. The syllabus that is relevant to this discussion is given here for your reference. First, know that the primary objective of RBI's monetary policy is to maintain sufficient liquidity in the market. This will ensure price stability and it will ensure the availability of credit. And these are necessary preconditions for sustainable growth. And today's news is that the borrowing limits of scheduled banks under the marginal standing facility scheme was increased from 2% to 3% of their net demand and time liabilities. This relaxation was earlier granted till June 30th and now it has been extended till September 30th. Now here know that the net demand and time liabilities, or in short NDTL, refers to the total demand and time liabilities that are held by the banks. It includes deposits of the general public and the balances which are held by the bank with other banks. And the demand deposits in this consists of all the liabilities which the bank needs to pay on demand, like current deposits, demand drafts, balances in overdue fixed deposits, and also the demand liabilities portion of savings bank deposits, etc. And in this, the time deposits consists of deposits that need to be repaid on maturity and where the depositor cannot withdraw money immediately. Instead, the depositor is required to wait for a certain time period to gain access to those funds. Now, this includes fixed deposits, time liabilities portion of savings banks deposits, etc. So now the news is that the marginal standing facility scheme was increased from 2 to 3% of the scheduled banks NDTL. Now, to understand the marginal standing facility scheme, first let's understand the monetary policy instrument known as Liquidity Adjustment Facility, or in short LAF. LAF is a facility which is extended by RBI to the scheduled commercial banks and primary dealers so as to avail liquidity in case of requirement or to park or put the excess funds with the RBI when there is excess liquidity. And this will be done on an overnight basis or term basis against a collateral such as government securities. So this facility is provided by RBI against a collateral such as government securities which is pledged by the scheduled commercial banks and primary dealers. That means under LAF, banks could borrow money by selling securities to RBI at a predetermined rate, which is the repo rate. And remember, under the reverse repo operation, RBI borrows the excess liquidity from the banks and pays an interest called as reverse repo rate. Now, through the LAF, banks are permitted to borrow only a certain percentage of its NDTL, that is net demand and time liabilities. So, what if the bank requires more funds? See, in case when a bank requires more funds beyond what is permissible under the liquidity adjustment facility, then the bank can access the another window which is called as marginal standing facility, or in short MSF. This MSF is a scheme announced by the RBI in its monetary policy of 2011 to 12, and it refers to the penal rate at which banks can borrow money from RBI over and above what is available to them through the LAF window. And remember, MSF or the marginal standing facility is always fixed above the repo rate. And this MSF would be the last resort for banks once they exhaust all the borrowing options, including the liquidity adjustment facility by pledging their government securities. And know that under MSF, banks can borrow funds by pledging government securities within the limits of statutory liquidity ratio, or in short SLR. So what is SLR? SLR is an amount fixed by the RBI as a percentage of total deposits of a bank. The bank has to maintain this amount with itself in cash, gold, or even other forms such as treasury bills of the government. And traditionally, know that SLR was stipulated to be no lower than 25% and not exceeding 40% of the bank's total demand and time liabilities. But in the year 2007, the Banking Regulation Act of 1949 was amended to remove this 25% lower limit. And here you should keep in mind that the statutory liquidity ratio or SLR is different from the cash reserve ratio, which is CRR. Because CRR is the amount fixed by RBI as a percentage of the total deposits of a bank. But it has to be held as reserves with the RBI, and that too only in the cash form. So that is all about this discussion. In this discussion, we saw the new announcement by RBI regarding scheduled banks. And based on that, we saw different economic terms such as net demand and time liabilities, marginal standing facility. We saw about liquidity adjustment facility. We saw about statutory liquidity ratio and also about cash reserve ratio. Now, these economic terms are very important because there are questions in preliminary examination where they mention these terms and they ask these terms are used in relation to which among the following. Like this question, which appeared in the 2014 prelims examination. Here the question asks the terms marginal standing facility rate and net demand and time liabilities sometimes appearing in news are used in relation to, and the correct answer is option A, banking operations. So with this, we come to the end of this discussion. The respite practice question will be discussed in the last session. This next discussion is based on this FAQ article, which focuses on the concept called as randomized control trials, or in short, RCT. So in this discussion, we will see about this RCT and we'll also see why this concept is being discussed recently. The syllabus that is relevant to this discussion is given here for your reference. First, know that this RCT concept is highlighted by the recent issue which is related to the Patanjali Ayurved company, because the company claimed that it has created drugs called as Coronil and Swarasi that are effective in COVID-19 treatment. Here, the company claimed that a randomized controlled trial was conducted among the COVID-19 positive patients with these drugs. And the company claimed that the results were favorable. But this was severely criticized by some quarters of the society, and finally the government had to respond. So before seeing the government's response, let us have a good understanding of the concept called as randomized control trial, or in short, RCT. RCTs are a type of clinical trials to test the effectiveness of a new treatment for a particular illness. Here, the subjects of the study, that is, the affected people, will be randomly allocated into different groups. Then they will be separately treated and analyzed. And then the final outcomes are compared. Now here note that the two important constituents of RCT are control and then randomization. So first one is control. Here, control is essential to get an unbiased evaluation of the effectiveness of a treatment during a clinical trial. For example, the group of people or subjects under study of a new treatment would be compared with another group of people or subjects who are called as control group. Now, this control group will be given no treatment, or they will be given an already existing treatment, or they will be even given a placebo. Here, know that placebo is a drug without an active substance, or you can call it a sugar pill which doesn't have a medicine in it. Now, the next important constituent is randomization. Now, this means the task of allocating patients among two treatments during a clinical trial. Here, if the patients are aware of the treatment which they are going to receive, then they would be biased. So, in randomization, the patients are allocated using a random mechanism. Now, this ensures that neither the patient and nor the doctor would know about the allocation. Now, here you should understand that bias is also avoided through the technique called blinding, and there are different types of blinding trials, such as we have single blinded trials, double blinded trials, triple and quadruple blinded trials, etc. In this, the single blinded trials means either the patient or the research team do not know who is assigned what treatment. And in a double blind study, both the patients and the research team do not know which treatment is assigned to the patient. And then in the quadruple or triple blind trials, 4 or 3 of the relevant groups are not aware of the treatment assigned to them. So this is the background you should know about RCT. Now let us understand the significance of RCT method with reference to some of the viewpoints given in this FAQ article. The author of this article mentions that many eminent persons have supported the usage of RCT in clinical trials due to the qualities of RCT. Because according to the author, RCT is one of the best method of trials since it includes comparison of patients. And this comparison of patients will give us a more desirable result. In well-designed RCTs, researchers follow the study groups over days, weeks, years, and they observe major clinical endpoints. And it will be possible to measure what benefit a particular group got in comparison to the another group. So based on this FAQ article gives us examples of the remdesivir study and the solidarity and recovery trials, which were large-scale RCTs. We have discussed about the solidarity trials and recovery trials previously in our discussions. Now, these trials were effective in proving that hydroxychloroquine was not an effective drug for COVID-19 cure. And then a second study proved that remdesivir was somewhat an effective drug for COVID-19 treatment. And these conclusions were arrived at using large-scale RCTs only. So according to experts, a good RCT for COVID-19 should enroll enough patients and it should have a defined clinical endpoints which should mention about the mortality and morbidity, and it should also mention the days of stay in hospital. So this is the background and significance of RCT. Now, what was the government's response to the advertisement of Patanjali company? The Ministry of Ayush has ordered the Patanjali company to stop advertising the drug as a cure for COVID-19 because the scientific details of the drugs or the study were not yet published for justification. So the government pointed out that the advertisement would attract provisions of Drugs and Magic Remedies Objectionable Advertisements Act of 1954. So what is this act? Know that this act prohibits advertisements of drugs and remedies that claim to have magical properties. I know that all the offences which are punishable under this act are cognizable offences. That is, a person can be arrested under this act without a warrant by a police officer. And according to this act, for such offences, the penalty is a maximum sentence of 6 months imprisonment with or without fine on the first conviction. And if there is any subsequent conviction, then the term may be up to a year with or without fine. And most importantly, know that if the convicted party is a company, then all the members of the company will be punished under this act. So that is all about this discussion. In this discussion, we saw what do we mean by RCT, its significance, and then finally we also saw the recent issue regarding a COVID-19 treatment drug, and we also saw about the Drugs and Magic Remedies Objectionable Advertisements Act of 1954. With this, we come to the end of this discussion. The displayed practice question will be discussed in the last session. Moving on to the next discussion, which is based on this article, it talks about South China Sea dispute. We have been hearing the ongoing dispute in South China Sea for the last few years, and countries such as China, Vietnam, Philippines, Taiwan, Malaysia and Brunei have competing claims in this South China Sea region. And as usual, the most aggressive claims among the countries is put forward by China. Even China has started island building and naval patrolling in the disputed region. So other countries have accused China of militarizing the South China Sea. So what is the dispute about? See, the South China Sea dispute is purely a territorial dispute over the sovereignty of some islands such as the Spratly Islands, Parasil Islands and Natuna Islands. And this dispute also involves atolls, reefs and shoals such as Scarborough Shoal, as you can see in this picture. See, atoll means a chain of islands formed of coral or a ring-shaped reef or island. And shoal is nothing but a submerged sandbank which is visible at low water. And in this next map, you can see the territory which is claimed by China. China claims the largest portion of territory, which is an area defined by the 9-dash line. And this 9-dash line is depicted as a red dotted line in this map. So what is the significance of this region that so many countries are claiming it? See, it is said that the South China Sea is having a lot of untapped oil reserves and natural gas resources. And apart from this, it is also a major shipping route because more than 30% of world trade passes through this area. And this is the reason why almost all countries in the region are claiming territories in South China Sea. So what is the news today? The news is about a statement made by Vietnam on behalf of ASEAN, that is Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Vietnam has noted that the United Nations Convention on the Law of Seas, or in short UNCLOS of 1982, should be the basis of sovereign rights and entitlements in the South China Sea. So, know that this UNCLOS was adopted in 1982. It is an international agreement which demarcates the rights and usage limits of marine space to each country. It also protects the marine environment by directing the governing states to control their pollution to the ocean. Apart from this, it also puts restrictions on the amount of toxins and pollutants that come from all ships internationally. And know that the convention has created 3 new institutions on the international scene relating to ocean. They are the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, then the International Seabed Authority, and then the Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf. And with respect to India, know that India became a signatory to this UNCLOS in the year 1982 itself. So now Vietnam has suggested this because if the sovereign rights and entitlements in the South China Sea are based on UNCLOS, then there will be a clear demarcation because UNCLOS provides for usage limits of marine space to each country. So based on that, the ongoing disputes regarding the region can be reduced. And it will also remove the so-called rule of one country in that region, that is the rule of China in the South China Sea region. So that is all about this discussion. In this discussion, we saw about the South China Sea dispute, and we also saw about the UNCLOS agreement. With this, we come to the end of this discussion. The display practice question will be discussed in the last session. Moving on to the next discussion, which is based on this news article. It talks about the advice given by the Union Health Ministry to use the steroidal drug called as dexamethasone as an alternative to the methylprednisolone. And this is for managing the moderate to severe cases of COVID-19 infections. Here note that methylprednisolone is already being given to the COVID patients. So now dexamethasone is included in the updated clinical management protocol of Government of India for managing the COVID-19 cases. So in this context, let us discuss about this drug and its uses. Remember that dexamethasone is a corticosteroid drug. A corticosteroid is a drug which is used to reduce inflammation in the body, and it is used to suppress the immune system of the body. And this dexamethasone is a corticosteroid drug only. And the ingredient of this drug is similar to the natural hormone which is produced by the adrenal glands. It is often used to replace this chemical when our body does not make enough of it. It is also used to relieve inflammation. Here inflammation means swelling, heat, redness and pain. Now this drug is used in a variety of illness which includes certain forms of arthritis and also diseases related to skin, blood, kidney, intestinal disorders, etc. And sometimes it is also prescribed for severe allergies, asthma, and to certain types of cancer also. Now, today's news is that this drug was tested in the COVID-19 patients of United Kingdom in their clinical trial named Recovery. And there it was found that this drug has benefits for critically ill patients of COVID-19 infection. It is also found that this drug has reduced mortality by 1/3 for the patients on ventilators, and it has reduced mortality by 1/5 for patients on oxygen therapy. And know that in India, this drug is already a part of the national list of essential medicines and it is widely available. So, what is this national list of essential medicines? See, the essential medicines are those medicines which satisfy the priority healthcare needs of majority of the population. This concept of essential medicines was first introduced by World Health Organization in the year 1977 and it was adopted by many countries. And in case of India, the first national list of essential medicines, or in short NLEM, was prepared and released in the year 1996. And this list was subsequently revised many times. And know that this NLEM of India contains medicines which are commonly used in primary, secondary and tertiary healthcare levels. It is also to be noted that medicines which are included in NLEM should be available at affordable costs and with assured quality. And the primary purpose of NLEM is to promote the rational use of medicines by considering the 3 important aspects, which are cost, safety, and efficacy. And furthermore, NLEM also promotes the prescription of generic medicines which are cheap compared to the branded medicines. And also through this list, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare of the Government of India ensures quality healthcare system by assuring the availability of safe and efficacious medicines for its population. Also note that the Department of Pharmaceuticals under the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers rely on NLEM, which is prepared by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare for the price fixation of drugs. So these are the information that you should know with respect to NLEM. In this discussion, we saw about the drug dexamethasone and we also saw about National List of Essential Medicines. With this, we come to the end of this discussion. The discrete practice question will be discussed in the last session. Now we have come to the last session for the day, which is the practice questions, the discussion session. Now this question is a pair-based question. 3 pairs are given and we have to choose the correctly matched pair. The first pair is 38th parallel and North Korea. This is a correct pair because apart from North Korea, South Korea could have been also given and it would have also been the correct answer. We discussed the 30th parallel when we discussed about North Korea-South Korea relations. We saw that the USA and the then USSR agreed for a temporary division of Korea to disarm the Japanese army after the Second World War. And subsequently in 1945, Korea was divided at the 38th parallel or the 38-degree north latitude. And the demilitarized zone, that is DMZ, which is a buffer zone between North Korea and South Korea, runs along this 30th parallel only. So this is a correct pair. Now the second pair is Dampier-Hodges line, India. Now this is also a correct pair because the Sundarbans of West Bengal is considered to be an area south of the Dampier-Hodges line. See, this Dampier-Hodges line was drawn to demarcate the Khas Mahal in the early 19th century. This Khas Mahal is government's own estate. Now this line was demarcated because the zamindars in Bengal, that is the landlords, started large-scale encroachment of forest that was adjacent to their estates. They did this to avoid the payment of legitimate revenue. So by threatened with possible loss of revenue, the government at that time demarcated the non-leased forest area as Khas Mahal. And Dampier was the then commissioner of Sundarbans and Lieutenant Hodges was the surveyor. And they together drew a line from Kalpi area on the river Hooghly to the Basirhat area on the river Kammati, as you can see in this map. So from that point onwards, this line has been known as the Dampier-Hodges line, and south of this line lies the Indian Sundarbans Delta. Now the third pair is 9- line China. We discussed about this in today's discussion when we discussed about the South China Sea dispute. Now through this 9- line, China claims a large portion of territory in the South China Sea region. Now here all the 3 pairs are correctly matched. So the correct answer is option D, 1, 2 and 3. Now this next question is based on the monetary instruments of RBI. First statement mentions, under Liquidity Adjustment Facility LAF, banks could borrow money from RBI by selling securities at repo rate. Yes, this statement is correct. Now the second statement is, marginal standing facility is the penal rate above repo rate at which banks can borrow money from RBI over and above the LAF window. This statement is correct because during discussion we saw that when bank requires more funds beyond what is permissible under the LAF, then it can access another window called as the marginal standing facility. And this is always fixed above the repo rate. That is why this statement is correct. But here the question asks for the incorrect statements. And both the statements are correct statements. So the correct answer is neither 1 nor 2. Now this is a very direct question. The question asks, Spratly, Paracel and Natuna Islands often seen in news are located in. 4 options are given: East China Sea, Sea of Japan, Black Sea and then South China Sea. So the correct answer is option D, South China Sea. These are the islands which are disputed in the South China Sea region among many countries such as China, Vietnam, Philippines, etc. Now this next question is based on National List of Essential Medicines. The first statement is, the list contains only the medicines which are used in primary healthcare. This statement is incorrect because during discussion we saw that this list contains medicines which are used in primary, secondary and tertiary healthcare. Now, second statement is, its primary purpose is to promote rational use of medicines considering cost, safety and efficacy. This is the primary purpose of NLEM, so it is a correct statement. Now, the third statement is, it is prepared by Department of Pharmaceuticals under Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers. It is incorrect because this list is prepared by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And after this list is prepared by Health and Family Welfare Ministry, then the Department of Pharmaceuticals fixes the price of these drugs. So here the question asks for the correct statements. So the correct answer is option C, 2 only. Now, this is a previously asked question in prelims examination. It appeared in 2017 prelims examination. The question asks, with reference to Indian Ocean dipole, sometimes mentioned in the news, while forecasting Indian monsoon, which of the following statements is or are correct? First statement is IOD phenomenon is characterized by a difference in sea surface temperature between tropical Western Indian Ocean and tropical Eastern Pacific Ocean. Now, this statement is incorrect because it is the difference in sea surface temperature between tropical Western Indian Ocean and tropical Eastern Indian Ocean or tropical Southeastern Indian Ocean. Here it should not be Pacific Ocean. So that is why this statement is incorrect. Now, the second statement mentions an IOD phenomenon can influence an El Nino's impact on the monsoon. Yes, this statement is correct because during discussion we saw that the positive IOD event influences or moderates the effect of El Nino event. That is, despite El Nino, if there is strong positive IOD, then it can lead to good monsoon rainfall in India. And here the question asks for the correct statement. So the correct answer is option B, 2 only. Now, this next question is also based on El Nino event. First statement is, in the El Nino event, the sea surface temperature in the central and eastern tropical Pacific Ocean becomes substantially lower than normal. Now, this statement is incorrect because it becomes substantially higher than normal in an El Nino event. When it is substantially lower, it is the La Nina event, not El Nino. And the second statement is, the isotope analysis of foraminifera shell is helpful in determining the ocean temperature at the time of the shell's creation. This is a correct statement because it was used by the study which we discussed during article discussion to predict that El Nino-like events in the Indian Ocean was present in the glacial past. And here the question asks for the correct statements. So the correct answer is option B, 2 only. Now let us take one mains question based on GS paper 3. The world is in peril due to the spread of COVID-19 pandemic, and many private companies are claiming to have developed medicine to cure this disease. In the light of the above statement, analyze the significance of randomized controlled trial. See, this question asks us to analyze the significance of RCT based on the statement. So for justifying the statement, you can mention the recent Patanjali issue where they have created 2 drugs and they have claimed that those 2 drugs are effective in treating the COVID-19 disease. Then you can mention how government has responded to this claim. Then you have to talk about the RCT and its significance, because government has noted that no such trials have been conducted. There is no availability of any RCT trials conducted so far for the medicines advertised by the company. So try to give 1 or 2 examples so that you can enrich your answers. Don't forget to add your own viewpoints also. You can write the answer and post it in the comment section. We will review it and appropriate suggestion will be provided within a reasonable time frame. With this, we have come to the end of today's Hindi News Analysis. If you like the video, don't forget to like, comment and share, and do subscribe to Shankar IAS Academy YouTube channel for more updates related to civil service examination preparation.